Hello, everyone. I'm Kim Mack. Welcome to the 17th event in the 2025-2026 iteration of the Popular Music Books in Process series, a collaboration between the Journal of Popular Music Studies, IASPM US, and the POP Conference. Thank you to my co-organizers, Eric Weisbard, Francesca Royster, Gus Stadler, Carl Wilson, Elena Roslagova, and Alex Veazey. On April 29th, Daphne A. Brooks and Griffin Woodworth will be here to discuss their respective books, Black Star Rising and the Purple Rain, Pop Culture and the Sonic Afterlives of David Bowie and Prince, edited by Brooks and published by Duke, and Prince, Musical, Genre, and Construction of Racial Identity, published by University of Michigan Press. You can find the full schedule on the IASPM US website under the Journal tab, and previous recorded sessions of the Popular Music Books in Process series are archived under Eric's YouTube channel. Today, we're very excited to have Wadada Leo Smith, Nina's son Eidsheim, and Juliette Belocq here to discuss their in-progress book, In Search of Light, a dialogue about the music and philosophy of Wadada Leo Smith. And here are biographies. Wadada Leo Smith, trumpeter, multi-instrumentalist, creative composer / performer, and author, was born in Leland, Mississippi in 1941. He composed his first piece at the age of 12 and has created Ankh-Rosmation, a symbolic image-based language for performers or musicians. Smith's music philosophy, Notes, 8 Pieces, Source of New World Music, Creative Music, was originally published by Kiam Press in 1973 and has been translated to multiple languages. Smith's book has been recorded extensively on more than 100 albums as a leader / co-leader. In 2013, he was a finalist for the Pulitzer Prize in Music for 10 Freedom Summers, Defining Moments in the History of the United States of America, a collection of compositions inspired by the Civil Rights Movement and released as a 4-CD box set. His Ankh-Rosmation scores are exhibited regularly, most recently at the American Academy of Arts and Letters. Nina's son Eidsheim works in and through voice, race, words, concepts, memory, listening, and materiality, and is the author of Sensing Sound, Singing and Listening as Vibrational Practice, and The Race of Sound, Listening, Timbre, and Vocality in African American Music, and co-editor of Refiguring American Music book series. Currently, Nina is working on a co-authored book with and about the composer and trumpet player Wadada Leo Smith. She's also just started working on a book about the question of whether it's possible to build sensorial memory of a childhood that didn't come to be, for which the research involves eating her way through K-Town and asking kind strangers to teach her how to cook Korean food. Nina was born in South Korea, adopted to and grew up on the west coast of Norway, and lives in Los Angeles. And Juliette Belocq leads Handbuilt, a graphic design studio committed to using design as a tool to collaborate with communities and uplift the stories that make them unique. She pursues design methods based on conceptualization and visual experimentation for diverse formats, from print and digital to environmental. Juliette has been teaching at Otis College of Art and Design and the Southern California Institute of Architecture in Los Angeles. She earned a Master of Fine Arts in Graphic Design from the California Institute of the Arts. Prior, she studied in Paris and Den Haag. Her work received awards from the American Institute of Graphic Arts and the American Institute of Architects and the Society for Experiential Graphic Design. After the discussion, there'll be a Q&A, which Elena will moderate. Please put your questions and comments in the chat as they come to you, and Elena will find them there at the end of the discussion. And feel free to also post comments throughout the conversation. So now I will turn things over to Wadada, Nina, and Juliette.
Thank you so much for having us. We have been so excited to really do our first conversation about this book after we have seen its form ourselves. And Juliette is going to ask her, like, kind of lead the conversation, moderate the conversation. But I just wanted to start by showing some images because the book is not just a text, it's really an object. And we want to give you an impression of that as much as we could. I think we didn't have a coffee or anything like that, but the three of us really met in 1999 or 2000 at Cal Arts. We were all there at the same time. But then there were many years where the three of us did not have interaction. We had interactions. I had interactions with Wadada and with Juliette, but the three of us did not. But then, can you see?
Yep.
In 1999, in 2019, during many nines, Wadada came here to UCLA, and we did the first of what we have been calling dialogues, which was a kind of preparation for starting to put the book together. So this is an image after that, the first dialogue at the Fowler Museum, and Juliette came to hear it, and we did not know that we would be working on this book together at that time. But I was really, really happy to be able to find this picture in my archive. So that's kind of one of these moments that we had together. This is it's just to show that we have been working on this project very publicly and also very, very quietly at our desks and in our kitchens and living rooms. So this is at the Hammer, another dialogue. And here, let me turn off the sound. Here is, we'll talk a little bit about the journey of getting to this space, but this is what it would feel like now in this mock-up format to encounter a book. So here are just a few stills. And again, we'll go into the process, I think, a little bit later, but Wadada and I spent 25 years talking together in various forms. And in 2017, we decided to actually do this book together. And we started collecting all the materials that we had, postcards, letters, emails, and then we started to have formal conversations. And in the very end, though, like towards actually trying to put it into book format, we had thousands and thousands of pages and just so much material. And one is the text in terms of our conversations, private and public, but the other is, of course, Wadada's enormous archive of work. So this is where Juliette came in to try to help conceptualize what this might look and feel like as an object. And I worked just very intensely with Juliette, and I had a kind of idea in my head for what this might be. I couldn't quite explain it. So I didn't want to explain it in a way that was wrong to you, Wadada. So I didn't really show you any tests before I kind of had it in this format. So I was very nervous that it would not feel right. So I thought I really want to show you that this is I'm kind of laughing nervously now because I was very, 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 very nervous that it wouldn't come across in the way that that my vision wouldn't land in your vision without that. So I wanted to really, because all the papers were loose still, and they're still loose. So I want to present it in this as a jewel to you. So I drove all around LA trying to find a box that would fit perfectly, but there were no box. Of course, there's no box that you could fit into perfectly. That was like a dumb thing to even think. So I made a box. I will have to say that because I'm very happy that I was able to make a box. And then this is the box. And I wrote a letter where I tried to explain that this is I really yeah, it's hard to explain what the letter was, but and then I put it in another box, and then in another box, and then suddenly, finally, I get this is an image that Wadada sent to me via text message saying it's here, and he had not opened it yet. We can see, and then it's there, and I sent a little care package of mocha java coffee that I always send to Wadada. So this is a little bit of our journey into now the book is being reviewed. So well, this image is from last summer, but the book is being reviewed now by Duke University Press, and Ken is here. And I also want to say that Ken has been very important, an important part of this story since we started thinking about this. But this is where we are now, coffee and a manuscript that we want to talk about. Oh, there.
Yeah. You forgot the beautiful green envelope cloth fabric envelope that you had put it inside.
Oh, I didn't take a
Okay.
picture of that.
Huh?
I didn't take a picture of that, but that's true.
It,
It was inside
it's
the.
okay. I'm just mentioning that's how it came. So you get a full picture of actually what it looked like. Okay. It's a transparent green with gold little stuff all over it. Um, pretty impressive. And I might say that yeah, I knew that you were afraid to say what was what, and I didn't want you to be more frightened, so I didn't say anything.
But you did say something at some point.
Well, yeah, I told you that basically, we go ahead and do it and forget about how it looks because it's always going to be right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I have a question about this because, if I may, this, we know there is a book, so we know you made a decision of writing this book, and you do allude in the book itself on how this came about. But I'm really curious about how did the idea of writing a book even come about? You're both in the business of translating things that do not necessarily have references in the world. So I'm really I would really like to hear about how you decided that a book was necessary.
Well, I think my earliest recollection is that one day in my office we were talking, and Nina said that she would do a book about my work or about me or something like that. And it was normal to say something like that because um, things that should be remembered should be captured or collected in a way for other people to experience it.
Mhm.
So it was quite normal. I mean, if I was her and she were me, I would say to her, "Oh, I think we should do a book, or I would like to do a book on you one of these days." Not knowing how to get there, or how to start, or when to start, but the idea itself is the start. So we don't have to worry about how to get there because once you start, you're gonna get there.
That's right. Yeah.
And
What
this
about
was,
you, Nina?
yeah. I mean, the conversation you talk about whether that was in the early 2000s or 2000 maybe, and I think the reason I wanted to do a book was to try to understand better anchorasmation and your thinking about music, your way of making a sound, or just your way of putting energy out through your music. Because what I always say is that when I talk about your music is just one impulse or one sound from you rearranges the world. I really just saying it and imagining it now, I really feel it's like a molecular rearrangement. Um, so how does one understand that, or how does one think about that? And I certainly didn't. I had gone to a music high school, I had gone to music conservatory, but I had no way of understanding or setting words to that. So I thought, like you said, to want to write a book about that may help me
Mm.
try to understand that. And then it did take 20 years. I wrote a few books between then and now, then and this book to try to move closer to be able to work on this book.
Mm.
So the word you always very often use is discovery.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That is a word I think about when I think about you. And then this whole process is a process of discovery to me. I don't know, what is it like for you?
It's like trying to find out what it means to be alive.
Mm.
To think about the connection with environment, where we stand in this tiny little planet amidst this huge conglomerate of skies and earths and so on and so on. So I think maybe the contemplated level or element of why we did it is probably the best image I can give. And it's to understand what's our place, where we stand on this little planet. Because I believe all discovery is to figure out what that means to be actually human.
Yeah. And I took many classes with you, and I have sung with you, working with your scores. And one of the things you told me, and you tell everybody, is to keep a notebook where we work through. It becomes like a textbook or a theory book of that score itself, and each person needs to keep their own. So I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about anchorage, about your scores, and how you encourage people to work through them. Because I think for me, I'm curious what you have to say, but for me, this book is not something that is just to be read and memorized. I mean, not that people would do that, but it's not information to just be kept as it is. It's
Right.
really something that I'm hoping will just that people will own in some kind of way and make them do their own thing. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about your scores, and I thought I could maybe show a few pictures.
Yeah.
But if you can talk a little bit about anchorage, that would be probably really nice for people to hear directly from you.
Well, the biggest key to approximation is to realize that it's a symbolic score, and that as a symbol, it has the capacity to be unlimited. And if there's a notion of how much information one can receive from it, maybe that limitation is just for that moment. Because when they come back to it or come to another one of the scores, approximation scores, then that notion of limit can be wider, become wider or larger. So a symbol has so much in it, but it doesn't take up space. It doesn't occupy or illustrate everything that it has inside of it. And so when we come to it, it's a constant process for every one of the symbols is to renegotiate how we understand it and how it functions within that single moment without trying to figure it out about its past or future. And so what that does for us, it allows a continuously growth process based off of discovery.
Yeah. And maybe could I show, I'm going to show one from the course, and then maybe you could, can you guys see it now?
We're not seeing your folder. We are
Yeah.
seeing maybe another screen.
Now?
Yeah, yes.
Okay. Yeah. These are the four sons and the four symphonies. And if you translate that, it simply means the sound of the sun, because symphony really means sound. And culturally, we have taken it to mean somehow high something, something. But it's just the word symphony actually just simply means sound. And so the sound of the sun, which we don't have the privilege to go to the sun to hear what it sounds like, I believe that my scores can actually take you there to that sun. And the properties that's overlaid on this surface is just one quality or one viewpoint of what's there, because the whole object, though we can't see it, is populated with material. And that area we call the unknown. And the material that we see, we call the known. So it's a constant negotiation and engagement with known and unknown properties. If it's properly performed, that's what it would come out to be. But also we know that the sun has a tremendous amount of fire or energy or heat or light. And all those things come into play by engaging the electromagnetic spectrum to try to understand how to get to the properties that's there. Physically, the different levels, the red down to the deep purple, those are really the light spectrum, but shaped a little bit different in color, but they're there. And the middle splits out and unfolds on itself so that you have the top at one point and so-called bottom, but actually it could be north and south or some other destination that's horizontally. You see what I mean? So the first thing to realize is the shapes of stuff, and then to think about color. What does color mean? Okay. And you reference the color either by science or mathematical or by imagination. And if you reference it by imagination, that coordinates that you reference it as must be consistent for the piece, because otherwise there's nothing in nature that just kind of like floats from meaning to the different meaning. It has a concrete meaning once you reference it. Yellow, for example, is often thought of being high up in the spectrum of the light spectrum, and the darker colors much lower. But in fact, I would like for it to be thought of as non-position, not position as such. So that, for example, looking at this first one here, with the predominantly red and gold and yellow, when you view it by having it not a distinct quality to it, look at it from this way: the top velocity unit has a full moon, and the bottom velocity unit has a new moon. Now, what does that mean? How many days does it take from a full moon to the new moon? That's a whole cycle. Okay. So flipping it, inadvertently flipping it, mixing it, causing the red unit to replace the green unit or the silver unit, all those things are possible. And yet, it must be as fast as light transform into musical property, whatever you reference it as. And remember, the light spectrum is the scientific reference of it. There are all kinds of color reference. There are cultural qualities to reference. There's medical principles to color. There's, I mean, the amount of reference that one can access as an artist is just unlimited, really, when you think about it.
This is just so mind-boggling. It does remind me of being in 1999 again at my desk at CalArts and hearing a strange trumpet sound coming from the ceiling and learning from Nina that your desk was just above my desk and that I should come find you. And I have very poor orientation, which helps me being a better graphic designer.
Uh,
I found your door, I knocked at your door and welcomed me and showed me the scores that were on your wall. And as someone who had been thinking about color quite a bit, I just left your office completely enchanted and also completely understanding that I knew nothing. So this is reminding me of that feeling in my body of having to perpetually relearn something out of what you have at that moment, with yourself, in your memory, in your new skills, in your new relationships. But it's really incredible that you and Nina decided to write about it when it is about understanding something that someone else has discovered for the public.
mm,
Um, so I would love to ask the two of you, when it comes to teach something that has not been discovered by everyone yet, therefore needs to be both experienced and taught and understood and known, how did you arrive at writing in the way that you have been writing? A book with 388 starting points is really unusual. The book is made out of this list of entries,
mm.
many, many of them. How did you arrive at this way of writing about this knowledge?
Well, I can say it in a really fast way. When 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 what it is you're trying to do is not fixed, it's very easy, or not easy, but it's possible to figure out what to do, because the standard is not fixed by something else or someone else. You see, for example, in an approximation score, you don't have to learn every single thing about it. All you need to do is learn two things about it.
Mm,
And those two things can be one symbol and one idea about another symbol, and you can still participate, you
mm,
see.
yes.
And that can be alongside of a person that understands, let's say, 5 different things about that language, and one who understands 20 different things about that language. All three of them can function and actually contribute to the building of that sound object.
Thank you, Wadada. What about you, Nina?
Yeah, like I was saying, we thought about the book as a dialogue. So when the second time we decided to do the book, we started to talk about the form, and we thought it would be what we knew, what at that point was that it would be a dialogue. And that's why we did these public dialogues, to try to understand what that meant. Even though people have dialoguing for thousands of years,
Mhm.
we needed to figure out our form of dialogue. So that was one mode that we worked. But then I did feel like I had to go to our archive of texts that we had produced, whether we had
Mhm.
actually written it or whether we had spoken it, and I transcribed
Yeah.
pages and pages and pages of our conversations that we had. We had formal conversations, like on Zoom, where I had to prepare my questions, and then I recorded when we were driving and had conversations when we had lunch. It was just we were
And
documenting
walking and
everything
walking.
and walking
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so I transcribed all of that, and then I just had, like I said, thousands of pages. And there are different models for writing about music and writing about the composer, writing about the creative person, writing about the visionary philosopher. And I, I might be wrong, and I might just be poorly read, but I felt that many of them were in the mode of, let me tell you something, like let
Mhm.
me explain to you what this thing is. And I didn't think like that our dialogue would do that. So I spent 2 years reading extremely widely, just not thinking about whether it was music or art or, the text, but just trying to find texts that had not necessarily literally
Literally.
dialogue in it, but I felt had space and relationality in it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I found some, I started to see things that were more had smaller portions, very short chapters, for example. So one I found that had really short chapters that I showed to Wadada that I thought, and we started to try to devise a table of contents based on that format. But what happened then is, text is so powerful. What happened then is that the table of contents started to read in a certain way, and it started to tell a story that was not the story that we necessarily want to tell. So it was
Mm-hmm.
all these different forms that we knew did something that we didn't want to do. And that's when I just kind of went into a box. I don't know, box. Why do I say box? I just went deep and ended up with this. And it was also, of course, as you know, Juliette, so much in conversation with you. And the funny thing is, I don't know, we haven't talked much about this with Ada, but it's a little bit like the Bible, or like there are texts, of course, many. There's an old precedent for texts that are numbered, which is what our little entries, short and longer entries are. They're numbered. They're not titled with as a chapter would be titled. I guess some chapters are just titled with numbers too. And then it was a matter of trying to understand which of all these thousands of pages we want to actually include, because we wanted to be something that, my idea at least was that it should be something that somebody could read in a very, very, very long sitting.
Mm-hmm.
Or it was something that somebody could just dip in and out of it. Like, you should be able to read it in different ways, but it needed to be something that you could just have a very immediate relationship with. So that was another kind of thing I wanted to happen to. And then I did devise it, and then I sent it to Wadada, and then Wadada rewrote a number of things and worked. I don't know if you want to describe what you thought and what you wanted to do once you kind of saw the selections that had ended up in the form of the book draft at that point.
Yeah, basically rewriting some areas and editing and stuff like that. It's a normal venture to try to make some. Well, let's say it this way: making art is never finished until it's out of your hand.
Yes.
Okay, and but I must say that the idea about a dialogue, which is often missed, I think, not necessarily intentionally, but what I found about the dialogues is that there was a certain kind of danger and pressure existing in the environment, and it often would bring us into to look at the question or the answer from a different perspective, and never feeling that the answer itself has actually been completed altogether. And so you leave that presentation with your head still and heart still involved in calculating how to construct that idea to make it much more communicatable to everybody. Because ultimately, you have to have the level of touching that heart or that consciousness of that person that you're talking to, or talking about, and something like that. So that's one of the qualities. But the book form, I think, is perfect for this reason. There are statements that have been made, and they have been basically built and shaped to be complete and within themselves.
Mm-hmm.
But the pages that go into the darkness, the black pages, it is to allow contemplation and reflection and some kind of engaged reflection for just a fleeting moment before changing to the page with more material on it. I think that's unique. I think that's will enhance the reading of our book to a greater extent than it would if those blank pages wasn't there. So just to compliment what Nina was saying, that other quality of immediacy, but also this lingering moment between the lifting of one page and the flattening out of it and the folding over to the new page. That's a moment that often is, it feels like it's kind of evaporates because it's such a fast movement. But with a blank page there, if the person is truly focused, they won't just see the page and move fast. They'll linger for a few seconds. Mm-hmm. And that's the intent.
Yeah. And it creates a zone of your work too. It's a separate zone that is in parallel and together. And one is not an illustration or a caption of the other, but they are not separated. So
yes. Yes. And the illustrations, I see them as vehicles where the reader can take flight. And that flight is where it's in this imaginary reflective creation that we live in. Mm-hmm. So that the journey itself on the pages where the illustrations are, that's a different kind of meditative moment. That's not only a reflective meditative moment, but it's a moment where the imagination and the objects that's being viewed can take flight.
Yeah.
So a book has lots of information, but it doesn't have all of it.
Right.
That's where the reader comes in. And Juliette, you were instrumental in actually making all this happen. Yes. How do you have designed books before? How do you as a designer read a text, and what happens to you when you read a text, and how did this all come about?
Generally, as a graphic designer, I first read a text for content. And as I read it, I take notes of all the places, all the tangents that this book is leading me into. So a page, like I have a piece of paper. I can only do that with a pen by hand. I read the text and I make notes without really reading what I'm writing, about all the underlying shapes I'm seeing, about all the things it makes me think about. And I try to not even read that at all because I don't want to be distracted by it, but I need to take notes about the framework through which I'm reading the text itself, so I can help separate this. And later on with the team, we can all decide what is this book trying to express beside its own content, And then there's another type of reading that happens later, usually, where I read the text for all the kind of styles and techniques that designers use to tell what type of content you're reading. So I'm searching only for M dashes and searching only for italics, or searching for the many different types of space that exists in a book, so that I can make sure that all of this in the future of the book will be kind of normalized. The thing about this book, though, is that it didn't happen that way at all. The way I read this book is the only way it only ever happened once. It's with you, Nina. Nina brought the text. We were gonna go over it together. And we started by making some changes to the text before we would even discuss it, so that we could work on the form it had truly in that minute, because that text keeps on changing all the time. And so the way I discovered it for the first time is through the search and find tool in Word, and we went over all the things we wanted to change first. So I read everything I could in a glance, and Nina is so fast with with the text. So I the first time I kind of consumed some of the meeting was in the seemingly randomized, at least for me, way in which she wanted to kind of enrich the text before we would work on it. So I was I was dizzy. It was an incredible introduction to a text like this because you could already sense, even through the word functions, that this was a dialogue that was happening at times in the traditional sense and at times in very parallel ways. Um, so there were moments where you could see physically in the text that these two authors were using um, structures in a traditional way and then let them go so that they wouldn't tell the story that a structure tells. So when you open the book, it's incredibly organized. There's typographic style for Nina's voice. There's a typographic style for Wadada's voice. But Nina quotes Wadada in her own typographic, style. There are moments where Wadada answers a question that Nina poses, but the answer is not a dialogue type of answer. It's a new kind. So it was, as a graphic designer, it was just an incredible experience, I have to say. Yeah.
Right.
Cool.
Thank you.
There we go.
I'm actually curious about something about that. You've both been so connected for close to 30 years now through not just kind of the friendship that you have, but the intellectual forays that you've been kind of leading in parallel. And when you've been working on your part of this book, I'm really wondering if you were hearing each other's voice in your head, or if you were hearing other voices, because you both created that very personal space within that dialogue. And I'm wondering what did it sound like in there?
I don't know. No, seriously. When I think about talking or speaking or writing or composing or playing, I don't know what is going to happen from the first tip of my tongue to the excitement of expression.
Mm-hmm.
And once it starts, for some good reason, stuff just come, and I follow it straight on out my heart, through my throat, up through my lips, and out into the space. And I won't be able to remember it right away, but I can reflect a little bit enough to know that the last sentence, I can connect it to the one that's coming next.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like almost like sound sculpturing, but having a different kind of meaning because it's actually spoken language or written language.
Yeah, I think maybe we're going to go to the Q&A soon, but I just wanted to respond very quickly to say that from the beginning, what part of your lessons were dreams. I never remember I rarely, I should say, never. I rarely remember my like dreams that I have when I sleep.
Mm.
But the dreams you're talking about, I think, are different.
Mm.
That's my sense. And then, and I remember, and I think this is in the book too. I remember one time after Cal Arts where we were together, but where you taught and I was a student. I went to another school and I had. I felt I wouldn't make it, and I called you,
Mm.
and I had some specific problem with the paper. I don't remember exactly what it was, but you said just go to sleep again, and then you just wake up again, and you will know. And that's what I did. And But again, this is like 20 years, more than 20 years ago. But I feel like with this book, I understood better what you mean by dreaming, because I got up very early when I was like really had assembled everything, and I was like looking at the text again and writing new text. And I got up super early, like 4 or 5 in the morning, before I was kind of awake, and that's how I wrote. So I wrote, I did not know what I was writing. I mean, we edited afterwards, but it was really this kind of letting go of controlling it. So I think I maybe finally got that lesson. But I'm gonna turn it over.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. Well, you know, I know we already got a question, but I'm just going to say this. When I was 12 years old, I ordered a book that's called Meditation by Marcus Aurelius. And I didn't know who Marcus Aurelius was. I bought the book because it looked beautiful. And it was hard. It was a hard cover book. Okay. I still have that book. It's on my shelf over here now. And I showed it to Nina, I believe the last time she was out here. That was when I was 12 years old. I'm 84 now. So what is that? 60, 70 some years ago. Okay.
All right. Cool. Thank you. Well, we're going to move to Q&A, and I'm going to ask Carl's question first because it's really good introduction.
Okay.
There is a related question. So Carl Wilson, he cannot unmute, so I'm just going to read his question.
Okay.
And he says, Wadada, thank you so much for being here. Could you please describe the process of turning the visual scores into performance with other musicians? In other words, is there any conventional musical instruction or notation that goes along with them? How much do you direct, and how much do you reach an interpretation through group discussion and rehearsal? And have other ensembles been able to play those scores without you there to guide them?
Yes, I'll start with the last question. Other ensembles have played it without me. Most of them I have not heard, which probably is good. Let's see. How would I instruct someone to perform it? Well, basically, to understand and use the light spectrum as the beginning of knowledge for color, and to understand that everything that's in the score has a meaning because it's a symbol, and that you cannot play the score just by looking at it and have an impression that you're making an impression of the score by playing it. You have to actually resolve the issues of what's inside that score and make them have presence, those images. What else? There was one other, I think that basically covers it, right? What's the one?
So is there any conventional musical instruction?
By convention, I don't really understand that word anymore. So I'll say it this way. The Ithaca Percussion Ensemble, 18 percussion, played Winter from that series that Nina just showed. And I composed a theme, not a theme, but an insert inside of it simply because I wanted to, for no other reason. And when I gave it to them, they was to play it intuitively and nobody counts off or give directions or give a cue. It was to be played intuitively. And the way it came out in the performance and later in the recording, it was a good something to do.
Cool.
I enjoyed the results of it. And that's not uncommon. The great master Bushmars, in his conduction, sometimes he would put in something there that was from, let's say, a theme like, a notated like something, okay? but because it was in the flow of his conduction, it cannot be connected with this other idea about music on notes on staff, because he was conducting from this other space, you know. Yeah.
All right, cool. Thank you. I'm going to use another visitor's question. B. Jivan, are you here? This is a person who was logging off to finish making dinner. So I'm going to read his question as well. And I think it's for Nina, but also for both of you. I think it's interesting. So he says, I think it's interesting to contrast the dialogue model of collaborative authorship with co-author or ghostwriter models, among others, like Albert Murray and Count Basie, Brent Hayes and Edwards and Henry Treadwell. That's a very recent book. I'm actually interested with how you guys see your collaboration as different. And countless more. I have the impression that at the end of the day, Mr. Smith is the primary author of this book. This is not me saying, this is the... Yeah.
Well, let me introduce Nina. It's not true. Because a collaboration can never be by one person. Science, physics, mathematics tells us that that's impossible. Now, go ahead, Nina.
Yeah.
No, we were really concerned about those models, or I personally was very concerned. I think you were too. I, of course, read many of them throughout just being a music scholar, but once we started our work, I purposefully did not read anymore. I took a break. I did not want to open those books. And I went far in other directions. Yeah, it's really, I would say too, it's really a deeply collaborative work. I described how I assembled the pieces in the end, and I sent you saw the images of sending the manuscript to Wadada, but what happened after that was that Wadada read it very carefully. Then I flew out to New Haven from LA, and we sat there for 2-3 days, and we read the whole manuscript together at Wadada's kitchen table, and Wadada cooked for me. And we I don't know if it was, should say, rewrote, but like many portions we completely rewrote, many we edited, and it was very with the voice. So to your question, Juliette, like we didn't imagine the voice, we were actually voicing it, and then from that we directly worked on the text, and then we did another round. So then I cleaned that all up and I sent it back to Wadada in a physical format again. And then we did a whole other round of the same, but via Zoom. So we're reading it aloud again, and I was changing the text as we wanted to. So the text itself came from both of us, the archive that we called from. It was assembled, and then it was rewritten, or which word we want to use, twice, with both of us present, both of us voicing the text.
Okay, thank you.
That's just a description, at least, of the process.
Yes. Well, this kind of leads into the you talking about discussing the book aloud. To C. Vance question, I don't know the name of this person. A book about sound.
Karina Venter. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Can you ask the question?
Karina.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Thank you, Nina, and thank you, Wadada. So listening to both of you, this just sounds like an unthinkably beautiful project, and the way in which you speak about the book, you know, the beautiful green envelope. There's something here about materiality and about the object that feels quite special. And I was listening to that, and just thank you for taking so much care with the book as an object of possibility. But that also led me to think about sound as possibility. And I wondered, Nina, as someone who thinks very carefully about sound, what if you learned about sound by engaging so closely with this almost world of representing sounds as possibility?
Well, like I was saying, that it took me 20 years to try to actually work more directly with this book, and I got so much from studying with Wadada for 2 years at CalArts, and I think I took all those lessons out to think about sound, and I ended up writing about sound, like thinking about sound as energy, vibration, intermateriality, relationality, which is all the relationalities is really Wadada's theory, I would say, or not just theory, but practice, like your world. And to be able to think about voice and race, like it's all came, I think, via what I learned those 2 first years and our continuous dialogue. So it has infused everything. Your thinking about that has infused everything the ways I've been able to think about music. Yeah. Thank you, Karina, for asking.
Thank you. John, do you want to ask? Oh, but Wadada, did you want to add anything to that?
No, it sounds good.
Okay. John, do you want to ask yours? John Gennari, are you still here?
Yep,
Okay, great.
sure. Thank you for sharing this project with us. It's a real pleasure to sit in on another in a series of dialogues. My question has to do with attention. I come across discussions of it in podcasts that I listen to. I haven't read any of the books yet, but I've become familiar with this term called the attention economy, and it's a kind of anxiety about how the digitization of information flow, the overload of information, the pace of our lives, etc., has made it maybe impossible to contemplate, to sit with, to exercise the same rhythms, if you will, in absorbing music, art, literature, etc. And I wonder if you would talk more about, if this resonates at all, the issue of attention and how this figures in your thinking. I'm also thinking about the it's if you teach and you're finding that your students don't want to buy books or are unfamiliar with the technology of the book, and if you're teaching about music and you grew up in the time of the LP and needing to get up and turn the LP over and thinking of that technology as the right form in which to have this experience, streaming and everything else seems very different. And it's the way that our students these days are consuming music. So I'm dilating here. Let me let you respond to anything I've said.
Attention, yes. What I find is that because there's too much, I'll make a quote, because there's too much sugar for a dime. That's a phrase, that's one of Henry Threaker's composition. 30 years ago, he wrote that, too much sugar for a dime. That's what's happening nowadays in our society, world society. So much information, and no one has the time or the skill, sometimes is in play, to actually engage fully. So what does that mean for art? It means that there's a very small, unique gathering of people that actually can experience what's being offered out there in a serious, solid way. And what I mean by in a serious, solid way is that they receive all of it and not just a little bit of it, okay? My biggest complaint with artists today, particularly musician artists and also painters and dancers and etc., is that they are often they often build their inspiration from outside in, and and when it does come from them from the inside, they take the smallest part of it and run with it because they don't have time to actually pursue the actual full parameter of what's being uh, given to them. The same problem exists community-wide with how we experience stuff. Okay, we often get a little piece of it, and therefore not the whole picture. So I believe it's a serious problem. I think that that's why I can live in a country that I was born 84 years ago in, and we have kind of a dictatorship that nobody's disturbed by.
Thank you.
Nina, did you want to say something to the question?
Well, just that this, to me, the experience of working on this has been this inward journey that, I mean, I hope it feels like that anyhow. Like, one of the questions we started out with is, how should we live, as human beings? And just the work of doing this has taught me that we live in relationship with others, in relationship with work of arts, our surroundings, and that we take the time to metabolize it and pay attention.
Yeah. Okay, so I have still my question, but do you have time for it, Nina?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm very interested in the notebooks that musicians use to prepare for improvisational performance in your system, Wadada. And I have to confess that my first experience of this book was with Nina's excerpts, because the first things I read were from her own writing. And I think Nina described it at some point as notes that are akin to the kind of notes that she would make for performances when she studied with you. And maybe, Nina, I'm wrong, so please correct me. And some of these notes are autobiographical. Some of these notes are about like things that we encounter, other artworks that we encounter in the world. And I wonder if that is part of the notebooks that you guys think should go into the performance, when people encounter one another and kind of use the notes to create a common space for music. Or do they work in some other ways? Could you think about it and describe?
Yeah. Well, let's say the first thing is that I stopped improvising about 2011, 12, or 13, and I started creating. Primarily because I found the big difference between the two applications of how you make art. And then I pursued kind of a research to help me find my space while thinking about this notion of create. And what I discovered is that unless it's done through inspiration, for me, that authenticates whatever I'm doing artistically or thinking about or writing about or whatever. I don't figure out how to, let's say, make a statement. I let the statement itself come to me from this other reservoir, and then I just express it, you see. So the inspiration authenticates whatever that's being presented or done or performed. Um, and the other contents of your question was, I got logged in.
What goes into these notebooks? Like what do you imagine?
Yes. My notebook consists of my iPhone. It's full of notes. And I'm so happy that I have an iPhone that has a note section in it. It's the most important section to me. Okay. Not photographs, not emails, the note section. But also, I write on envelopes, like I have stacks of mails over here and over there. I write on envelopes of mail. And I write on regular notebooks that I have, or which I have a lot of. And I write on strips of papers and stuff like that. And I lose them sometime and I find them sometime. Okay. Because my whole house is a paper machine. That's basically what it is. And it's a paper machine because I've been thinking ever since I was 12 years old to recognize that I was thinking. And so I write stuff down all the time.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks. Okay, so we have 2 minutes left, and Vijay
Yes.
has a question.
Yes.
Do you want to ask it?
Sure. Hello. I'm so glad to be here and to bear witness to this beautiful conversation, and also to have a glimpse of the work as it is. The book is what I've seen of it is a beautiful portrait of not just of one person, but of two, both of whom I care for very deeply. So I'm grateful for the entirety of it. And I only, just by way of closing, and my deep gratitude for both of your work and everything you've done, and all the conversations we've had amongst ourselves, and things we've gotten to do together. I just wanted to ask about that opening phrase of Nina's about sound that rearranges the world, and if either of you might like to say a few more words about that. Thank you again.
You want to say something, Wadada?
Yeah, I'm gonna say something. You're gonna say something too, right?
I want to hear what you have to say.
Okay. I might remind you that life and life forms are most definitely identified with the presence of sound. All life forms. The butterfly that flutters coming out of the cocoon, the rattlesnake that loses its scale and become a rattlesnake. Wadada wakes up in the morning and opens his eyes. That little click is a sound. Only I hear it inside of me, but I'm sure that it's heard on Jupiter as well. And the whole universe, they're gonna figure out the whole creation. They're gonna figure out one day that it is actually just a sound, and they probably have already figured it out, but they won't say it. So that which is active and alive and living and prospers and being and becoming is sounding.
Yeah, and I think that my statement was about how so much thinking and theorizing and analysis of music takes it away from soundment. It estranges it from soundment. And even if I was brought up in that system, even if I was sensorialized, my sensorium has been oriented towards the system. And the book is a lot about that, how we slowly through childhood and teen years and training are made to feel music a certain way. and how Wadada Leo Smith's unchromatization is so powerful that it has the capacity to reach people despite that rigorous training to move elsewhere. And that's what I mean by that. Despite that rigorous training, when I hear a sound from you, I am moved beyond everything I'm supposed to think about it. I feel it, and it changes the world. So it's a rebirth. Each breath or each sound, it's like a birth of a moment. That's what it feels like to me, anyhow, to hear you play and to read your scores.
Yeah, because reading the score without actually having it performed by an ensemble is an authentic version of it. And it's not to be shared with anyone because that's between you and the score. I do it all the time. Yeah. Like, I mean, I read all these guys' scores and women's scores and my daughter's, granddaughter's scores and stuff like that. I mean, they all into it. You know, when I played at Lincoln Center, both Jai and Belle, my two granddaughters, they both brought me scores, music scores into the dressing room.
Yeah, I remember.
So it's about intent as opposed to knowledge.
Mm.
Yeah.
And maybe I can say thank you on behalf of Wadada and Juliette and myself to everybody who
Yes.
came.
Thanks for inviting us.
Thank you so much for your conversation. It was great. And thanks for everybody for coming. And we're going to have next time two great books about Prince. So please come.
Thank you. Hey, Jeff.